Prince Harry launched a fierce attack on the press today during his lawsuit against the publisher of the British tabloid, the Daily Mirror. Prince Harry spent almost 5 hours giving evidence, and during that time, he blamed the tabloids for destroying his adolescence and his relationships. He also said the intrusion into the private life of his late mother, Princess Diana, made him feel physically sick. He went on to say he had been targeted by the press since 1996 when he was a schoolboy, and the prince is among a group of high-profile figures suing the publisher of the Daily Mirror over allegations of phone hacking between 1991 and 2011. Harry is the first senior British royal to appear in a witness box in more than a century. He'll be back in court again tomorrow. For more on this, I want to bring in Janelle Aldridge. She's an author and journalist and someone we turn to quite often on these royal stories, and joins us now from London. Janelle, welcome back to the program. Always love having you on.
Nice to be on with you too.
So do you think Prince Harry was able to prove his point that he had been illegally targeted by these tabloids?
I wouldn't say this one piece of testimony proved anything. I think it's laying out his case. And so he definitely had an opportunity to have his say. He had a witness statement as well. So whether he's been able to conclusively prove that it happened, I would say no. They have another half day cross-examining him tomorrow, and the trial will continue. And he's one of many, so we'll see if they manage to build a case against, the Daily Mirror group as the trial goes on.
Let's talk a little bit of some of the things he did say today. He spoke at length about the impact press coverage has had on his life, saying he couldn't trust anyone and that it played a role in his deteriorating relationship with his brother. What do you make of that testimony?
I think it is really interesting. I think anyone can put ourselves in a situation where you think you've told someone something, and the next thing you know, this news is boomeranging its way back to you. And of course, there goes, well, how could anyone have known if only you and me have had this conversation? And so I think in that sense, it's easy to see how trust can be eroded in any relationship if you feel details are coming away from private conversations or voicemails that you thought no one else would know. Of course, then you're going to turn the immediate response is to turn to the other person and say, well, it's you. You're the one doing the leaking. So you can see how if there have been leaks and if that's what's been happening, how that does have a direct impact on relationships. We know his former girlfriend, she felt she couldn't live with him in the press intrusion. So that relationship also broke down as well. So it clearly has had an effect on his life. Whether or not he can prove that the press did that, that's a different thing entirely. However, just the effect of secrets being leaked, it does break down relationships.
Prince Harry also accused the UK government as being at rock bottom along with the press. What did you think of that? Hearing a member of the royal family say that.
I mean, it's so interesting now, the position that he's now in, where he's no longer a working royal. So, I've probably said on this show with you times before, the royal family could never have it both ways with him and Meghan, because they've essentially been cut loose and are now, not HRH in essence. They can now go into a courtroom and say this. If they were still tethered to the royal family, I don't think this would have happened in this way, because royal families, they're meant to be apolitical as heads of state. So they're not meant to be for or against any government. So it is extraordinary to hear a member of the royal family saying something like that so openly. However, with their new kind of it's never happened, well, it has happened previously, but people were exiled, but with someone being kind of not exiled and still very much in the mix of the media news cycle, it is very, very interesting to see a royal in this position.
So he was on the stand for quite a few hours. Was there anything else that really stood out in your mind?
I think just the amount of anger that he has towards the press. And I'm not even here to say whether or not that is misplaced. I think he obviously feels it very deeply when it comes to his mother. And I think when it comes to family and some of those family bonds, whether you're royal or not, to feel that something, an institution or a sector played a part in the untimely demise of a parent, there's going to be a lot of emotion. And I think this really is his chance. You can write it in books, you can do interviews, but to actually be in a court of law, having a chance to have your say about what you think all the events that conspired around the time, how it made you feel, the impact it's had on your life. I think hearing the cross-examination, the back and forth of that conversation, it's not just me saying it to you in a way that I want to say it in a time frame I want to say it. This is a back and forth and a defense and going backwards and forwards. I think that is actually quite telling. And I think the other thing which he rightly says is, he's not the one on trial. I think that's an interesting point he's making, that journalists aren't coming to the stand to defend where they got the stories from. They're saying to him, you can't prove that we hacked you, but he's actually saying, you can't come to me for the sources of this. The sources, the people who know the answer to this, are the journalists. I'm on the stand. They're not coming to take the stand. And I think that's actually quite a powerful statement.
Just looking ahead, he'll be back on the stand again tomorrow. What are you watching for?
I think it'll be interesting to see how this ends, because we've heard quite a lot today, actually, in terms of the 5 hours that he's been on. There's been a lot of back and forth. I guess you are kind of thinking, OK, well, what more is there that the Mirror Group could try to either push him into, I wouldn't say losing his temper, I doubt he'll lose his temper, but can push him into being angry or to saying something that he doesn't really want to say. It's extraordinary that he's on there anyway. So I guess it's what could they potentially goad him into doing. But it seems that he's very well prepared, and he knows his case. He knows what he wants to say. He knows what he doesn't think is his own case to answer. And I think this could end up potentially with the other side feeling quite frustrated if they don't get a bit more of what they want from him.